Cooking with RG. Today, we're going to make Colorado honey peanut butter cookies. It comes out of this cookbook. This is the Trail Bosses Cowboy Cookbook. And inside is this recipe here on page 270. This comes from a lady who included it with the cookbook from Fort Collins, Colorado. Now, I don't know who it is, it's just a recipe in the cookbook, but I've made these cookies before, and they are really yummy. And they're not crisp, they're not sandy, but they are a little bit chewy because of the honey. So let's get started. Inside this bowl, I have 1 stick of just regular butter, not margarine, not the fake stuff, real butter that I've let come to room temperature. Next thing we're going to add is half a cup of brown sugar and half a cup of honey. This is some honey that I got from my mom. There's a lot of ways you can do this. I'm rather inclined, even though I have a measuring cup here, I'm rather inclined just to do it this way. Otherwise it will take forever. And you can approximate the honey. You don't have to be too exact, but you do want to make sure to have enough. I'm going to say that's enough. Next thing to do is to blend it. I'm using a hand mixer versus a stand mixer, and this will make quick work of it. Just a safety tip with mixers, you want to make sure you hold it still until the beaters come to a complete stop. Next thing you want to do is scrape down the sides. Whether you do this in a stand mixer, whether you do it with a hand mixer, you're going to have stuff on the side you have to scrape down. Okay, that looks pretty good. Next ingredient that we're going to need is 1 egg, partly beaten. I've got here 1 egg that I've also let come to room temperature. Just going to beat it up and pour it in. One ingredient that it does not call for, but I like to add, is vanilla. So I've got some expensive vanilla here. And I'm not even going to measure it. I'm just going to pour in how much I think it ought to be. I would say probably a teaspoon. Then the next thing you want to add is the peanut butter. This also calls for half a cup. I've been liking Jif as my favorite peanut butter, and I'm just going to eye this. It's really difficult to try to make this exact and then have to try to scrape it out of the bowls, or out of the bowl, or out of the measuring cup, or whatever. So there's a scoop. There's what half a cup looks like. As far as I'm concerned, that was close enough. The thing about cooking is that there's a lot of play with ingredients. Some recipes will call for this much, while another recipe will call for something completely different. Then the next thing to do is go ahead and mix this up. So there we go. That looks really good. It's light, fluffy, and well mixed. So the main thing we're missing for cookies so far is some leavening and, of course, flour. Half a teaspoon of salt, half teaspoon of baking soda, not to be confused with baking powder, baking soda. And then I have a couple of ingredients that I like to add that the recipe doesn't call for. 1 teaspoon of cocoa powder. That's kind of an unusual ingredient, but I think it'll amp up the flavors. And I also like just a dash of cinnamon. Just enough. But before I add the flour, let's mix it up again. The last ingredient we need to add is the flour. Let's add half the flour to start with. And this is 2 cups of just regular all-purpose flour. And to start with, I'm going to do the folding method where you come down the middle and scrape around. If you've ever tried to mix flour with a mixer and just let it go, and it all goes flying everywhere in a big cloud, you don't want to do that. So once you get it pretty much mixed up, then go ahead and add the rest of the flour. What I want to do is hand mix it first, and then I'll come back and use the beaters to really mix it up, just to avoid that cloud of dust I was talking about. We are now done with the mixer. A good practice is when you're done, unplug it. And then go ahead and also remove the beaters. Now I can safely lick these later. Last thing to do is just go ahead, get it all together, scrape down the sides again. So now we have a nice peanut butter cookie dough that we can then form to make the actual cookies. So what we need is a rimmed baking sheet lined with parchment paper. I'm using specially made cut sheets for this particular type of pan. And what we need to do is to roll little balls of the cookie dough and then put them on the sheet. So on this cookie sheet, I have 13 cookies, and I used the diagonal method rather than put them square. They're not going to spread that much. How many cookies you get will depend on how big you make each dough ball. They are approximately the size of a walnut, I would say. Formed into balls about the size or a little larger of walnuts, and I got about 25 cookies. Now, to just bake the cookies as these little rounds of dough will make a really weird cookie. So it's customary that you would press them down in some way before you would cook them. Historically, you would take a fork and you do a crisscross sort of pattern. And that's fine and good. That's really old-fashioned, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I've found a way that I really like better, and that is use a potato masher, particularly one like this, where you have this. They still make a crisscross pattern, but the crisscrosses are a lot larger, so they make a more interesting cookie. Plus, the crisscross pattern won't disappear as easily while baking. But just to do that by itself, you could likely get a stick. So you need a little bit of water. Just dump in the water. Remember, the water will bake off as soon as it hits the oven within a couple minutes, so you don't have to worry about it. The good thing about the water too is it'll leave the cookies slightly wet for the next step. So let's go ahead and get these cookies formed. Alright, here we go. Our cookies have been shaped. They're rather plain by themselves. So one thing I always like to do is take a cue from sugar cookies and put sprinkles on them. Normally I put green sprinkles, but I'm out, so we'll go with red. This is where the water comes in handy because then it'll help the sprinkles stick to the cookie. Whew! I have a fast hand. It's almost bionic. No, not really. Next thing to do is to put it in the oven, and you want to bake them at 350 degrees for about 8 to 10 minutes. One tray at a time.
Ten, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ten, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Alright, here we go. Here are the cookies done and cooled, and they're ready to eat. So let me show you how soft these cookies are. They're nice and soft and chewy because of the honey. So let's give it a try. Soft, chewy. The bumps from doing the crisscross is rather nice. Now, one particular flavor stands out, but the peanut butter is definitely there. This is really good. Give me a glass of milk. I can easily finish these off, but I don't need to do that. Well, I want to thank you for coming along with me today as we make these Colorado honey peanut butter cookies with my own little twist to them. So stay tuned. There'll be more recipes posted on my YouTube channel. And if you're not a subscriber of my YouTube channel, click the subscribe button, click the little bell for notifications. That way you'll know when I put up new videos. Thank you all for coming with me today, and I will see you in the next one.